The Newsday continues here on One News Now. I'm Diego Castro, bringing you the biggest headlines from around the world. Russia hits Ukrainian air bases and industrial facilities in overnight strikes. Russian media reported that more than one air base had been hit. Ukraine said work is underway to restore a runway and that 5 aircraft were taken out of service. The attacks were part of a new wave of Russian airstrikes this month. Both sides are seeking the upper hand ahead of what Kyiv hopes will be a decisive counter-offensive. European Union top diplomat Joseph Borrell said Russia will only negotiate if it wins the war. Borrell added that he is not optimistic about what could happen in the conflict this summer.
No sóc optimista sobre què passarà a Ucrània aquest estiu. El que sí veig és que la concentració de tropes i de forces d'un costat i de l'altre i la voluntat clara de Rússia d'intentar guanyar la guerra. No anirà a una negociació fins que no hagi intentat guanyar la guerra.
Japan says it is preparing to destroy any North Korean missiles that threatens its territory. This comes after Pyongyang announced plans to launch what it said was a satellite. Analysts say the military satellite is part of North Korea's efforts to advance surveillance technology. Japanese Chief Cabinet Secretary Hirosaku Matsuno said that North Korean plans to launch, quote, a ballistic missile purporting to be a satellite was a serious provocation of Tokyo's national security. According to Matsuno, Japan is now preparing to deploy missile units after the Defense Ministry issued orders to prepare to destroy the North Korean artillery.
北朝鮮が衛星と称する弾道ミサイルの発射を強行することは、我が国の安全保障に対する重大な挑発行為です。またこのような発射は、衛星と称したとしても、北朝鮮による弾道ミサイル技術を使用したいかなる発射も禁止している関連する国連安保理決議に違反するものであります。
A wildfire in the eastern Canadian city of Halifax led to mandatory evacuation orders for thousands of homes. Dashcam footage of a driver pushing through the wildfire captured nearly zero visibility as smoke billowing from the blaze enveloped their surroundings. Another footage from outside the wildfire also captures the extent to which the smoke has risen as the wildfire continues to spread. The mayor of Halifax says about 18,000 people were impacted by evacuations. According to officials, residents are not allowed to return to their homes until advised by municipal authorities. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau acknowledged the direness of the wildfire in the area and said government is ready to extend the necessary assistance. We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching One News Now World. I'm Jago Castro. Uganda's President Yoweri Museveni signed one of the world's toughest anti-LGBTQ laws, including the death penalty for aggravated homosexuality. This move draws Western condemnation and risks sanctions from aid donors. U.S. President Joe Biden condemned Uganda's new anti-gay law, saying the U.S. will evaluate the implications of the law and, quote, on all aspects of U.S. engagement with Uganda. Biden describes the law's passage as a shameful act that is the latest development in an alarming trend of human rights abuses and corruption in Uganda. Biden is considering additional steps, including the application of sanctions and restrictions of entry into the U.S. against anyone involved in serious human rights abuses or corruption. The British government, meanwhile, says it is appalled at the Ugandan government's new anti-homosexuality law, adding that it is firmly opposed to the death penalty in all circumstances. UK's Foreign Office Minister says this legislation undermines the protections and freedoms of all Ugandans. He also described the law as, quote, deeply discriminatory. For the European Union, the new anti-LGBTQ law goes against international human rights law and will impact the country's ties with international partners. EU's foreign policy chief Joseph Borrell notes that this law is contrary to international human rights law and to Uganda's obligations under the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. But back in Uganda, a member of parliament, Asuman Basalirwa, told journalists that they had no choice but to pass the anti-LGBTQ law as they have to, quote, stand their ground. Basalirwa also read a letter from the U.S. Embassy saying that he, quote, no longer possessed a valid travel visa to the U.S. Basalirwa then called on the U.S. and other countries in the West to revoke President Museveni's visa, along with those of all members of parliament and all Ugandans.
If we don't stand our ground, this is what is going to happen. Next time, they will bring another condition on our laws. Don't pass this law. If you do so, then X, Y, and Z is likely to happen. So if we don't stand our ground as a country, then we will completely have seceded our sovereignty and independence as a country.
Human rights lawyers and activists from Uganda are now preparing to file a petition against the law. They argue that the bill is unconstitutional and that its passing and subsequent signing was marred by procedural issues.
And one of the main flaws is that the act was passed without adequate and meaningful public participation. So when they're making law, the public has to really be involved. More especially people who are concerned. But we saw during the hearings of the committee that not even a single LGBTI person was basically before the committee to have their views heard. And this is a law that affects them directly.
At least 25 NATO troops were injured in clashes with ethnic Serbs in northern Kosovo. Witnesses said the soldiers fired tear gas and stun grenades to disperse protesters. The assembled Serbs, meanwhile, responded by throwing rocks and other hard objects at them. Some Kosovo police vehicles and one belonging to journalists were sprayed with Serb nationalist symbols. Tensions have risen since ethnic Albanian mayors took office in northern Kosovo's Serb majority area. This came following the April election, which was boycotted by Kosovo Serbs. Kosovo and Serbia have been foes for decades, with Belgrade refusing to recognize Kosovo's sovereignty. French thriller film Anatomy of a Fall bags the highest prize awarded at the Cannes Film Festival. That and more entertainment headlines in Showbiz Minute, courtesy of the Associated Press. And those are the top world headlines of the hour. Join us again at 9 a.m. as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. Coming right up is Agenda at 8 a.m. I'm Diego Castro. We are One News. All sides, all the time.